Welcome to the Saurabh Sagar Show. Today we are exploring a topic that is deeply personal, the journey of first generation immigrants.
I am the first generation migrant for my family coming here and settling into Australia around 15 years back.
I moved from India to Australia 10 years ago, and like many others, I have experienced firsthand the highs and lows of starting over in a new country. Whether it's crossing continents in search of a better future, navigating unfamiliar cultures, or finding balance between holding on to tradition and embracing change, the first gen immigrants experience is filled with both challenges and achievements.
There are so many issues that a first generation migrant goes through when migrating to a different country, or to that matter, even migrating to a different city. There are differences in culture, food, weather, or differences in how you live, how you talk, how you sound your English, differences between opinions that you have and the backgrounds that you come from. And adjusting to those different things is really challenging, and sometimes it can be daunting.
From the courage it takes to begin to the often unspoken pressure of making it all worthwhile for the family back home. This episode is honoring those stories. We dive into the identity struggle, the small wins, the big setbacks, and the emotional weight of living in the two worlds. So, whether you are a first generation immigrant yourself, or know someone who is, or just want to understand the journey a little better, this episode is for you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Saurabh Sagar Show. Today, we are going to talk about concerns, issues, and challenges faced by the first generation immigrants, especially in the technology field. And we are very fortunate to be joined today by Mandar Kulkarni. Welcome to the show, Mandar.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Vanda.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, Mandar, you are in IT. You have got 18 plus years in IT. You have been business analyst, project manager, product owner. You have been an engineering manager and now a director of engineering at ADP. You started, this is on your LinkedIn, you started your job with $100 a month. And this is your quote: my continuous interest in solving problems is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, and I love it. You also have your X handle at Mandar on the Move, where you share some interesting facts, inspiration, quotes, and stories. Thank you for that. And from what I know, you and being friends for a long time, you have moved different cities while you're in India, be it Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore. You've moved to different countries. You have lived in India, UK, United States of America, Canada, and you're a perfect person to talk about the challenges that a technology person sees and faces when they are immigrating to a different place. Hey, tell us your journey, your IT journey, and how it started and where you are now.
Okay. Well, it started with an engineering company. Of course, we were at the same place. That's where I met Sagar. I didn't know what I was doing there, but it started there. I did some desktop support there. I did some graphic design. After a few years, I thought it's time to move on because it was a core engineering company and I didn't belong there. So I moved to a different company in Hyderabad in India, did desktop support, and then moved into a niche of telecom support. So configuring and programming the telecom switches. And from there, I went back to Pune, joined Wipro, and then my foreign journeys began from there. So from Wipro, I started traveling to the United Kingdom, UK, and then I moved on to Sintel. From there, I started traveling again to different countries, and that's how I landed into the United States. And then I changed the jobs in the US, and I'm in Canada now. That is how it started.
Did you had a vision that you are going to move outside of India?
I never. So let's talk about, because United States is where I spent most of my time, and it was an accidental or undecided. I never thought I would go to the US. I had just come back to Pune from Scotland, and I was sitting. And one of my friends, he came to me and asked me, "Hey, do you want to go to the US?" And I said, "I don't even have a visa." And he said, "Yeah, let's go and apply." And it was tough to get a US work visa at that time, but I got it, fortunately or unfortunately, and I landed in the US. That's how I came. It was never decided that I wanted to move to the US, but that's where the journey started. And I lived in the US for more than 10 years.
We all three are migrants. Is that correct? So you're also the first generation immigrant to Australia?
Yes.
and I'm also one of those. So maybe sort of the same question to you. Was this planned that you wanted to move out of India and go to some other country?
Yeah, so for my case is an interesting one because I used to work in consulting. I started my career with entity data and all these service-based consulting companies. You have an opportunity to go to on-site in different countries, and I was always waiting. I used to see my colleagues going to other countries, putting on Facebook, showing off. And as a young guy in IT, always wanted to go outside abroad and experience the work culture, the life outside of India. But until 5, 6 years, I moved to a product company called Oracle. And in a product company, there was no opportunity to go outside. I was seeing my friends all traveling and I wasn't traveling. And I said, okay, no, I need to do something. Then one of my colleague at Oracle was applying for a PR for Australia. And he said, forget the dream about going to US, the US dream. Let's try Australia and Canada. So I ended up applying a PR for both Canada and Australia. And then I got a PR, resigned from my job, moved to Australia without a job. It took me 2 months to find a job. I was so desperate to go. It was more peer pressure, looking at friends and colleagues going outside.
That's a brave decision to
Yeah.
not have a job and then move and then find a
Yeah, and
job.
I was
Were you
married that
married?
time. I had a daughter, 3.5-year-old daughter. I had to leave them in India. And we can talk about a lot. But I was curious to know, was there something motivating you to go abroad?
So if you look at all of us, we are economic immigrants. We are not asylum seekers, right? We go for money. That's the biggest motivation when we move. Well, I had 3 million Indian rupees of mortgage on my head. And when I got my US visa, I was like, I want to go and pay that off. That was the biggest motivation when you move abroad, particularly when you go to US. The dollar to rupee ratio is always the deciding factor, right? You earn a lot of money when you go outside. And particularly when you, at least sort of when you moved, you had a permanent residency of Australia. In the US, when you go, you always are on non-immigrant visa. That has a cap of 6 years. That too, if you are able to hold on to your job for 6 years. So it's a catch-22 situation when it comes to H-1B, because if you have a job, you have a visa. If you have a visa, you have a job. When I started and I moved to the US, my biggest motivation was, well, I need to pay off my mortgage. I need to earn as much as in those 6 years before I have to go back.
Okay. So there was one was peer pressure, one was money. I didn't move for money. My concept and principle always from the beginning was opportunity. Go where the opportunity is. Money came as a secondary thing. I used to travel a lot outside of India, but for a long time there was no thinking about, hey, I want to immigrate to US or Australia or anywhere. Like there was nothing in my mind. My wife used to have a peer pressure like Saurabh, like she had her friends in US and she would say, why are we not, going somewhere? You travel a lot, but we are not going anywhere. And I said, if we get a right opportunity, whether it's in US, Australia, wherever it is, right, we'll go there. And when that right opportunity came, that's when I migrated to Australia.
Sagar and Manda, for me, it was not about migrating and settling in another country. It was always go there for some time, live the life, enjoy and come back, earn some money and come back. And that was the intent. I came to Australia. Never in my wildest dream I thought I'll settle here. My kids going to school here. Sometimes life has different plans.
And our plans also evolve, right? When you go to a different country, you're typically in your prime, in your 20s or early 30s, and you want to do most of your life, and you spend 5, 10 years in a country, and after that you have your children raised there, your priorities automatically shift. Now that I've spent so many years, I at least want to spend few more years living here. So yeah, it evolves.
When I was making my reverse plan of going back to India, me and my wife, my daughter was growing and she was like, no, I'm not going back. And we were making, okay, should we convert these dollars, go back? And gradually it felt like then the new generation, like I'm first generation, my second generation loves this country. She loves school and life. And I had this dilemma between my parents live in India and kids live here, because when you immigrate to a new country, you also lose the family. The families are overseas and you don't get to meet them frequently. So I want to spend more time with my parents, but then kids. So it was a tough decision. I talk to my wife and say, someday when these kids go in college and grow up, we'll go back to India.
Oh, by the way, my son goes to college. We're not going back anytime soon. We keep
I'm
talking
curious.
about it.
So I'm curious to know, Mandar, when did it came to your mind that this is it? I will live here, settle here, won't go back to India.
It's a realization, right? It's not a sudden thought that comes to your mind overnight. You build life in a new country where you go. Your kids go to school, they grow up there, and then there comes time when they have no connection left to their original country, like India. Yeah. They don't speak the language. Well, my son speaks the language because he went to school in India, but he cannot read and write Indian languages. He has no idea what goes on TV, what the life in India looks like. So you have to think about it, reflect, and see, well, you can decide for yourself, but you cannot make the decision for your kids anymore. And not only kids, you also build your own life there, right? You live life in a certain way. And you see, when you visit India, you see the difference in the life. I'm not saying this one is perfect or other one is better than that, but it's the habit you build over the time, living life in a certain way. And the change becomes difficult, particularly when you move from India to a first world country. The life is easier, you earn in dollars, so the income level is different. Life is less chaotic. The work-life balance is better. So these are all the considerations you have to make when you want to decide. Of course, me and my wife also talk about going back to India and retire, plan retirement in India, but not until we are working age. And yeah, it's just evolving decision. It doesn't happen overnight.
I totally agree with you. I'm not sure, Sagar, you tell your experience about when did you migrate from Pune to Australia?
Yes, I've been here in Australia for 15 years now. It was interesting how different me and my family's thinking was to your thinking. So my wife obviously wanted to be out of India for whatever reasons. So she was happy we are going to Australia. I was on work visa, like Manda said, so I didn't have a PR. So there was a question whether to migrate or not. It was a 4-year visa. I got a 4-year contract from IBM. So I used to work in IBM India. I got a 4-year contract from IBM Australia. And it was like a big decision to make. Yeah, is it the correct decision? Because it's just 4 years. What happens after 4 years? And after talking to people like Mandar, other friends, and they said, hey, 4 years is a long journey. Just go there, see what happens, and we'll go from there. So when we came to Australia, we had a mindset saying we'll give the best to this opportunity, to this land, to this country, see whether we like it or not. If we don't like it, we come back. Otherwise, we'll just be there forever. And I'm not exaggerating. In 1 week, all of us, me, my son was 4 years old at the time, my wife, everyone decided that Sydney is the best place to live. So we had decided in 1 week after coming here saying we are done. This is where we are going to spend the entire life. So we never had a discussion of going back. Never. It's how different it is, right?
That's very different from me because me and my wife, ever since we came here, we'll talk about the cultural differences and what was the first impression. In terms of the first thing I missed was food because I am come from a part of India where we like spicy food and a lot of variety of foods, a lot of Indian snacks. And when I came here, I tried the burger. It was bland. The pizzas were so all the food I used to crave in India because now I understood that all those even continental Chinese foods are Indian flavor, like they have a customized Indian version of that. But here I came here and ate an authentic burger or pizza or pasta and everything was bland for me. I said no. It was very emotional. And then obviously family and missing the weddings. Every time there used to be weddings in India, we can't travel and attend wedding until it's very close family members. What was your first impression for both of you when you arrived to the new country in terms of the cultural differences, the difference in food, the festival, and did you quickly adapt it to the new way of life?
I traveled from India to Salt Lake City, Utah, one of the colder cities in the US. I landed there 31st of January, peak of winter.
Okay.
Got out of the taxi that time and did not realize how cold it would be. And the ground was covered with black ice. The first thing I did was fall down and kiss the great American land. And Salt Lake City was relatively tough place because I landed in 2014. There weren't many Indians out there at that time. Now there's a lot of Indians and Indian grocery stores and everything. So that was a challenge. I know because I've traveled to Australia, I know there's good and nice public transportation available in Australia. That's not the case in the US, except for like New York and Chicago and LA. You don't find public transport. And the distance that you have to cover to even to go to the grocery store is, and if I were to talk in kilometers, 5-6 kilometers, you just cannot walk in the winter of January. So the biggest challenge right after landing, and nobody tells you about this, right? You don't know what to expect in terms of weather. All my life I lived in Pune, where the temperature is between 20 and 35 degrees. You land and temperature is minus 20 degrees. You don't even know what to expect. And then you have this empty apartment that you go to and no idea what to. Then you start looking for grocery stores, and then you realize, oh, should I have to walk for 5-6 kilometers because there's no car, there's nothing, and there's no bus to take. So those are the challenges you run into there. And when you land at a place like Salt Lake City with right from India, the life completely changes, right? There's nothing that you're used to. The groceries are hard to find. In India, you go to the shop and buy whatever you want. That's not available in the US. So you have to pick and choose what you can use in place of something else, right? So that's the challenge we run into when you start. You don't have people, you don't have friends, you don't have temple to go to, you don't have restaurants to go to immediately.
Did you find any Indian grocery?
We did find Indian grocery to survive because, again, our food habits are very, we're spoiled in India. We have so much available. And I'm talking in terms of Indian food. If you adapt to local cuisine, it's okay, but it takes time when you come first. So we found Indian grocery store, but it was challenging to find the things we usually eat.
And that is where I think Saurabh, you and me, I think we are better off with Australia, both Melbourne and Sydney. There are so many options. But even 15 years back when I came here, there were so many options in Sydney when it comes to the groceries and Indian groceries. The journey of immigration was better for us than going to Salt City. Even temperatures. We are so good with temperatures here. With Melbourne, it's too cold for me. But Sydney is perfect. It's similar to what we used to have in Pune.
Yeah, the best part is Australia is very similar to India. That you have get all the four weather. So you have summer, winter, and neither get too cold like the US gets.
And I don't know about Australia, but here's another thing that you run into, particularly in the US, is if you don't have credit, you literally cannot do anything. You cannot rent an apartment. You cannot get a credit card. You cannot buy a car. So you have to start from literally, if you move there in your 30s, you have a long journey because you have to build a credit at least for a year. For that, you have to get a secure credit card. So you deposit money and they give you pseudo credit card. You build the history and then they start giving you credit cards and then a car loan and all that. First year or so is tough, particularly when you move to the US. And there are a lot of things you realize after landing.
Not from credit perspective. So credit, you can get a loan easy if you have a salary or income to justify it. But the rental market is very bad, both in Sydney and Melbourne. It was better 15 years back, but still for someone coming from India with no rental history, you just can't get an apartment. The second one, which I don't know about you guys, but India, if you need a furniture, you just call someone, a person comes, fixes the furniture, everything. You don't even have to move. We have got helpers there for cooking the food, for washing your car, everything. When I came here, I went to IKEA to get a furniture. All those boxes were in my apartment, and then fixing those on my own, I cried. I literally cried saying, what am I doing? But now, after so many years, I like to do that because now I'm self-sufficient. So that was a big difference. And I think not a lot of people add up to that. So I'm assuming it was a similar thing for you guys when you came.
Now, I think I faced a similar issue with rental history. So as Mandar mentioned, the credit is a big thing in the US. But here, the first thing you need to sort out is a place of residence, like living, right? So I came here alone first because I was jobless. So I thought I'll find a job, find a place to live, and then bring my wife and kid. And initially, I shared an apartment with my friend. So it was like, a 2-bedroom apartment, 4 people, all 4 immigrants, just landed in the country and finding job and stuff. Then all I was doing is looking for a job and looking for a place so that I can bring in wife. I really struggled to find an apartment because I didn't have rental history. So then I ended up getting a job in Melbourne, and I ultimately got an apartment on 26th floor. It was a bit expensive and people were not taking that apartment. So I got it only because it wasn't a popular apartment. And then, as Sagar said, furniture. When we bought our bed from IKEA, I never assembled a bed in my life. Me and my wife, after dinner, started assembling it, and it like 3 a.m. in the morning, we ended up finishing the bed. And we were tired and we were crying, what is this?
But have you guys thought about how lucky we are? Three of us or any people who have the opportunity to go to different country and even choice, not just opportunities. Like Mandar, you have been to different countries, UK, USA, Canada. You had a choice where to go. But there's so many people in India and not just India, other developing countries who want to go, but they don't get that opportunity. So I just feel we are so lucky and fortunate to get that opportunity.
I have so many colleagues in my current company who have never stepped out of their state also. Forget about other country. So I definitely agree. The ability and opportunity to go outside and explore the world is amazing. It changes your perspective so much.
There's another discussion I had with one of my first managers here in Australia. And I was tell her the same thing, like what I'm sharing, how lucky I am. And she had a different take on this. She said, yes, you're lucky, but you acted on an opportunity. There was a decision to be made that you're going there when you had no one in Australia. So there's a risk factor associated with that decision. You had to say yes to that opportunity and then move, sacrificing whatever you had in India. So that's the flip side of that coin. Again, not a lot of people can do that, right? Like Saurabh was saying, you miss the food, you miss the people, your parents, your relatives.
Yeah.
You don't have that support system here, right?
In my case, I was well settled. Like I had a car, I had an apartment in Bangalore. I was working in a nice job at Accenture R&D lab. So it was all settled. And suddenly the PR came in. It like at a time when I was already settled in life and I had to take a decision and resign. So coming here without a job, it was a huge risk. And everyone was telling me, think about it before you go because it's a huge risk.
Risk factor is what the first generation immigration is about.
Yes.
You literally uproot yourself from where you are. No matter how settled you are or how good or bad situation you are in, you take a huge risk with your family, move to a completely different country, continent, language, different culture. That's about the first generation immigration.
Rapid fire is stupid questions that you need to answer quickly without thinking. It's a choice between one or two, and both the choices are normally correct. So don't overthink about these questions. Just answer whatever comes first to your mind. Okay, start.
Yep.
Electric car or petrol?
Petrol.
Sales or consulting?
Sales or consulting, you said? I would say sales.
Do you want to be a team player or solo?
Team player.
Social skills or technical skills?
Social.
This you have to support me. Sydney or Melbourne?
Sydney.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Sleep or going to gym?
Going to gym.
Reading a book or watching a movie?
Reading a book.
Use AI or use your brain?
Use AI.
You don't want to use your brain.
I use that anyways. It's a default setting, right?
Okay.
AI is the tool you want to use to save your brain.
Wisdom or knowledge?
Wisdom. After coming to the US in 2014, you know where I started? I started with watching Friends, Gilmore Girls, Desperate Housewives. The reason I had to do that so I could participate in conversations because I wouldn't get the jokes. So people, they're talking about things and making jokes, and I'm the only one standing there, like a stupid, not understanding what's going on. But here's the thing I would say, and I know we will come to that, but if you're moving to a country, try to understand how it works, what people like there, how people live there, what they do, how their life works. Because if you want to really assimilate, you want to do these things, right?
Just us in Australia, it was footy. So I had a huge struggle in settling at work because the moment the conversation shifts outside of work, general stuff, they talk about food and wine and footy. Nobody talks about cricket. I was looking for someone who can talk about cricket, but no footy. So
Australia at least plays cricket, right? Come to America, they call football, and that's not football. That's a different game.
That's where I think the importance of understanding, like you said, Manda, the culture of where you're going. is very important. I've seen a lot of people coming from India, even in Australia, and they just don't want to gel and learn that culture. And it becomes difficult. And then you have got this dilemma of, hey, I want to go back to India, but you can't. And then you find everything here happening is wrong. Like you start criticizing everything in Australia or to the country where you are working in, right? You need to find that balance of getting your culture from India and then marrying that with the culture in Australia or wherever you are going. So don't let go that culture, but also don't be so secluded and drown into your own culture that you are neglecting the culture that you're coming in. So try to marry
I
that.
think here's the trap first generation immigrants run into. They move outside of India, they go to a different country, and they start looking for India inside that country. They will only hang out with Indians. They will, and we are so in India, we have state-wise boundaries, right? So if I'm Marathi, I'm going to go and find a Marathi person. That's the problem. And there's nothing wrong with they finding Indian people to hang out with, but then why did you move to a country if you're not making any effort to assimilate in that country, learn the culture? You don't have to hang out with everybody local, but try to be part of the country when you move there, right? You just cannot create your own island and live on.
One thing that stands out for Australia is work-life balance. I've spoken to my friends living in US, in UK, Singapore, India, and I could see that how much of stress or extended work time they do in their countries compared to Australia, where we are more disciplined about working 9 to 5. That's one thing that changed for me when I moved from India to Australia was I was getting to spend more time with my family, my kids.
I just feel this is a cultural thing. And Indians in particular, they show off a lot at work, like showing that, hey, you're doing something, but you're not doing productive work. So in India, when I was working in India, I would be at my job, let's say from 9 o'clock till 7 in the evening. But the productive work may not be for that time because then we'll go for tea, we'll go for coffee, we'll do chit chat and all those things. When I came to Australia, the productive time is more.
Yeah, I agree to the point that in India, there is the social aspect at work. You get to have this big cafes and food court in each office building. So you go, you can have a proper breakfast in the morning, lunch, evening snacks, tea. So as a part of work, you kind of have a circle of friends who you're eating together evening. So that absorbs a lot of time at
But
work,
I
and that's
have
why
a,
you have.
different take on that. What Sagar said. India is where probably Australia was 100 years ago. In a way, and I'm not trying to toe anybody's line here, but if India doesn't work hard enough, it'll take, instead of 100, it'll take 200 years for India to go there. It's the generational shift that India is seeing now that it is independent for 75 years, right? So now it is in a phase where it has to work hard. You saw in 90s, China changed completely from 90s into early 2000s. That's when they went from 500 billion economy to what, 17, 18 trillion economy now. So it's the phase in that country's life.
And as per your point, Mandar, these are developed countries, and India was developing country, and not only India, China, Philippines. All the developing countries have stretched work hours, and all the developed countries, because they are 100 years ahead in time, they
And
kind of
here's the
had.
thing, right? Every country has different work culture, and the rules are according to that. Now, work for Wipro, I had to physically log 9.5 hours. I have to be in office, swipe in and swipe out 9.5 hours. But if you talk about that in Germany, people will sue you because they work for 7 hours.
I worked at Accenture India. I was logging 9.5 hour work. When I joined Accenture Australia, I was logging 7.5 hours. The same company working in different geographical locations have different working hours.
One of the things that I really want to talk about is depression. There are so many people who get into depression because you don't have friends, you don't have family, you're on your own, your culture is different, food, maybe I'm used to eating a certain type of food which is not available. So there are so many different things that are just blasted on you, right? And then you feel that you're stuck in this whole system where you want to go out but you can't go out, and then depression comes. So any of you had that depression, or anyone had that depression, and what would be your recommendation to go through that phase?
I can talk about that because I came to Canada in September, and September was fine, fantastic. It was fall, the weather was great, and then came November, and it went below freezing in November. And since then, it's been extremely cold. We moved from the United States, me and my wife, new country. Though it is very close to the US, it's different. And that's when I first time realized I might be in a slide of depression because my son is back in the US, the house is there, we are here. You miss your life that you established for 10 years. Growing up, I did not even know what depression meant. Nobody talked about it in India. We don't even realize we are experiencing something that is called depression. But as you live in a first world country, you understand all these things and people talk about it openly. And there's nothing wrong in going through such a phase in life. Everybody does, with or without realizing it, particularly after moving to a different country, different place, different culture. I found hobbies that I knew I had. I was just not paying attention to them as much. I made sure that I go to the gym every single day, at least 5 days a week. So here's the thing: what going to the gym did to me is not only I got out of the house, no matter what the temperature was, I physically moved, and that plays a major part in how you cope up with your emotions. Particularly, find a hobby. I made sure I post on LinkedIn thrice a week. It doesn't matter people like it or not. I just make sure every Sunday I spend a couple of hours, create those posts, and schedule them for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's such a habit I have built that I feel guilty if I miss a day. So that is how you cope up with these things. They are going to come and go, but help yourself. And if you're not able to cope up with it, find somebody to help you.
I totally get it, Mandar. Finding something helps, really helps. And the best way to deal with mental health is get physically healthy. There's a misconception that mental health would address by doing things which benefits mentally, but the first thing to deal with mental health is get physically healthy.
Moving, yeah, at least move. You don't want to go and exercise in the gym. Start walking.
Yeah. So this is something I did. In India, I don't used to walk. After dinner, I sit on my TV and watching television, like cricket or news channels. That was my life. And I had a tummy coming out. I was like 72 kilos. And when I came here, and same, me and my wife used to only talk about India, missing food, missing family. And then we started walking. Me and my wife started going when kids were in school, started going for a walk. Even during the daytime, if I'm working from home, I go for a 15 minutes walk. So I think it helped. My wife started Pilates classes. She joined some social groups. She did volunteering. So try to keep ourselves busy. I felt the more busier we got, it prevented us from overthinking. I know one of my friend who came from Bangalore with his wife. He got a job, settled here, but his wife didn't cope up. She was missing home, missing India, and he went back to India. So not everyone cope up with that emotional, because it's a big decision for us, like missing family and friends. It's not forget about all the different things, but we all are human beings. We are a social animals. The whole idea of leaving family and staying alone in a new country is like,
It's daunting. Let's go around the table with what is your mantra for successfully migrating or immigrating to a new country?
Okay, before you decide to move, ask why. Because if you don't know why you're moving, you're not going to see the success you want to see because you don't even know what the success looks like. Establish a timeline for your goals because I did not. I can tell you, you need that. And if you're moving for 5 years, making some money, so be it. But know exactly what you want to do, what you want to get into, and why. Second thing, when you go to the new country, try to find how life works there. Do not try to find India there because you can stay back in India if you want to find India a new country. In countries like Australia and the US, you have to have professional network. You cannot survive without that. You do not get jobs without network typically. So focus on networking with people, establishing that because if you want to be successful professionally, you have to have network and just learn the local culture. One more important thing, if you're not naturalized citizen of that country, stay away from politics because it's not, you have no skin in the game. Stay away from that. You don't want to be doing that when you're not even citizen of that country. Stay away from it. Follow the law, pay your taxes, don't get in trouble, and live happy life because there's a reason why you moved there, right? Try to be happy. Don't miss your country. Once you move, right? So enjoy the life you're choosing.
Yeah, for me, I think first thing is find what's your priority in life if you're planning to move to a new country. what's your priority and what gives you energy? Like, how do you recharge yourself? If meeting family members, meeting friends, going out, attending weddings, if you are a social animal and you have a lot of social network, you'll have to see that you're gonna sacrifice that to come to a new country, and you have to build that from zero. So, and that's an important aspect. And money is also an important aspect. Like the standard of life, we talk about quality of life and standard of life. The standard of life is the kind of house you live in, the car, the kind of holidays you go to in. Depending on you, when you go to a new country, obviously you earning in dollars, or for the same role you work in your country, you're getting more money. So if is that your priority, come to a new country, don't convert dollars into your native currency. That's the first thing people do. I used to do whenever I'm going through even buying grocery. Oh, this is I was to convert, and it was very difficult in the initial few months to live a normal life buying stuff, because I was converting dollar into Indian rupees, and it was affecting my buying decision. I wasn't spending properly, like earning in dollar but wasn't spending. And be connected to your roots. The way to don't miss India is celebrate all the festivals here. You can still connect to your roots and still be part of this country. Like, yeah, so that's the advice I would give someone coming overseas.
Cool. For me, why is very important. I would take time on understanding my why. And once you find your why, give 100%. There's no going back. I wouldn't go back. So think a lot, right? And this is not just immigration. Any decision that you make in your life, that why is important. So I will ask questions, thousands of questions, and I did when I moved before moving to Australia. Is this the correct thing to do? What I'm going to do? 4 years. What happens after 4 years? Should I be leaving my job? So I went through that why. And once I was convinced this is the correct thing to do for me, I gave 100%. So there was no turning back for me. So that why is important. The second, going back to what Mandar said, and even you said, Saurabh, you need to lose something and you need to gain something. So gain the new culture, let go some of your culture. Socialization is very important. Go and socialize, not just with Indians, anyone. We naturally go and talk to Indian people who are with the same culture. So take that extra step to go to someone new, from Europe or from, US or Australia. Go into their house, eat their food. And it's so important not to focus on negativity. You have to focus on positivity, because negativity is just not going to take you anywhere.
It was great chatting with you, Mandar.
Right.
Learned a
It's
lot.
fun to be here.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandar.